In here, dharma or phenomenon refers to all the things that human beings use, just like 5 skandhas, 12 ayatanas, and 18 dhatus. So here are 5 skandhas, 12 ayatanas, and 18 dhatus. You have to remember them very soon. So what is 5 skandhas? And what is 12 skandhas? So here the 12 skandhas, 5 skandhas, as we all know. And what is ayatanas? These are the sense-based or sense media, or like eye invisible objects or ear and sound, nose and other, and also the 18 dhatus. We have a consciousness, and in the consciousness, the so-called thing as myself, and also while understanding myself, and we also have the sense of discriminating ourselves. And although we are not able to have the right consciousness about it, but in the dream, not in the dream, but in the very deep subconsciousness. Well, even nowadays, normally they discriminate or make a distinction in this regard. Even though psychologists, in the consciousness, they have made a very deep classification of our consciousness, but it's a little weaker than how we generally classify in Buddhism. So even in our subconsciousness or unconsciousness, even the philosophers or psychologists like Jung or Freud, someone like Freud, he didn't know that this is also something that is passed down to our next life. It's just like the DNA, mental DNA in our body. Those 6 senses organs, and the object that those 6 organs acknowledge, and also light, sound, scent, taste, touch, and mind, or to say like the regulation that exists in this world. And even the dharma or the regulation, it is like the mental objects. So and on here, with the senses organs and the senses object, and also our consciousness, which is the host of those senses. Where the thing is, Buddha is so great. Well, I haven't seen you for some time. You have aged a little. Were you busy? You're working? You aged because you're working. Or so when we look at the whole thing in total sphere, the external boundaries or external objects, the way that we acknowledge them, well, we have sensuous organs, and depending on the sensuous organs, we can only acknowledge them. And even the sensuous organs itself, even our eyes, we are seeing the light, but even the light, there are two different lights, like the visible rays and invisible rays. So in some aspect, as human being went through evolution, we have adapted to the natural environment, and we have only seen those which are necessary to us, and those which are not necessary to us, while looking at them, spend our energy and also the film in the brain. We realize that there's no need to waste them. And even when we smell a scent, even the scent that we can smell, we're only smelling those which are needed to us. We are not tasting everything. So we are only intaking only as much as a human being can intake or human being can recognize. So we cannot really say we have idea about everything. So the object and also the sensory organs that I can see, and while looking at them, we have this kind of consciousness. So like to say, while looking with our eyes, well, even before Buddhism or after Buddhism or even during the time of Buddhism, those people who did not study Buddhism, they thought that there is something in the mind which lasts forever and it controls everything, but that is wrong. But nowadays, all the people who study Buddhism, they acknowledge that what Buddhism is saying is true. So when they have studied the brain, the thing that we see with our eyes, smelling with nose, and tasting with mouth, if we are doing it with one thing, then even if we close our eyes, we should be able to see. The logic should work in that way, and so that's why even when we have scientists, we should be able to smell, but we are not able to see with the nose. So likewise, we came to know that it is not a phenomenon worked out by one person or one thing. So with the eyes we see, and the sight organ in our body is different, and also the tasting organ is different, but it is connected with the brain, and so most of the sensuous organs are in this area. The eyes takes about 80% of the information, and then our ears. Well, the ear takes about 12% of the information. And the remaining about 8% is smelling, touch, and also the taste. So eyes are very, very important. And also it takes a lot of energy. So even if we don't have the nose, even when we sleep, we don't close our ears. There are also people who sleep with their eyes open. Who sleep with their eyes open and nose open. That's because the eyes, it takes a lot of energy. Right now, when you have opened your ear, whether the person has small or big nose, and identifying colors and whole activity, it takes a lot of energy. So when you are tired, you want to close your eyes first. So it's almost like close down and that you're tired. And also, the people that you don't want to see, you want to close your eyes because you don't want to spend your energy to them.
그렇게 이제 한다. 그러니까 이게 이제 지금 우리가 감각기관으로 대상을 인식하는
So with our sensuous organs, we intake information.
그 대상 그 자체를 가만히 이렇게 놓고 보면 말이에요.
All these 5 organs, when you just study them, well, I have said this repeatedly.
대상 그 자체의
The object, the importance does not lie with the object itself, but through the eye, through the light, through the sound, what we intake is important. Acknowledging and intaking is important. As a human, because we intake those information, our brain has developed and our memory has also improved. But also, human beings, we make too much mistakes, and at times we also intake wrong information. So sometimes, if something goes wrong, we also create a God that doesn't exist, and we also fall into our own traps. And we create a God, and we created too many gods, and we have been fooled by it. And despite all that, we try to create something in relation to the information that we take. And all of them in total, we say, all the things that we intake and can intake, we call all of them in total, we call them as dharmas or phenomenons. In one single word, we say dharma, but that in today's word, it refers as the object and sometimes also boundaries. And so, for example, well, the potassium cyanide is poison. So if you eat, you die. But if you don't eat, you don't die. So is it the problem of the potassium? Is it a problem of the poison, or is it the problem of human? So in Buddhism, it says it is not the problem of the potassium cyanide, but it is the problem of human being. And because of the situations or whatever was happening at the time, we can say that person committed suicide. And nowadays, rather than curing the situation or curing the human psychology, you try to fix whatever is happening outside, and you try to remove all the potassium cyanide in the wall. But then what happens next? You will try to look for something else in place of potassium cyanide. So, in fact, it is not the problem of the object, but it is the problem of the person who is seeing the reflection. So, it is also not the problem of the sensuous organs. It is not the problem of the objects. And by looking at them and also causing consciousness and myself, the GPS itself, what have I thought about? The problem lies over there. That's the essential point. So the problem of our everyday life, it is not the problem of seeing it, but how have we seen it? That is the problem. So if Korean people have gone somewhere for a tour, and because our concept or perception to see is weak, we have to go fast. So it's like, have you seen? Yes, I have seen. Have you taken a picture? Yes, then let's go. So if you don't go to many places, you say, we came here after paying money. Why don't we go to many places? It's almost like as in your psychology, you feel that, well, my son sent me here, but then it's almost like you want to show off that your son sent you a place, and then you also want to show off that you've been to some place. And when people ask you, where have you been? You say, oh, I've been here. But then if they ask you in detail, you have no answer. So that's almost like in order to make up your complex or the things that you have seen, you want to show them off, so that you have been to foreign country because your son took you somewhere. And by looking at the object, what kind of feelings have you raised inside? And you also want to prove that your son is not a bad son, and that's why your son is unlucky and unhappy. Do you understand what I mean? You're saying that because your son didn't send you for a tour for a long time. If your son sent you often, then there will be no reason for you to show off. Well, if you show off that your son sent you somewhere and you sent you somewhere and you're showing off, that means in on the other side of the palm, it means your son didn't do that for you often. So normally when you see my son is a doctor and lives in America and one is a doctor, and if you see it, then there is a conclusion. There's a conclusion that you don't see your son often. Why is that so? Because your son, it's difficult for your son to call you often, and also when you say a doctor, those people they're very cold. They don't even have their sense of humor because they work in a very mechanical way, and only if they work in a mechanical way they can fix people or deal with machines. So as a human being, they're not really very friendly. That's how they are trained to be. So one is a doctor, the other one is a professor. Most of the professors show off in front of students. But when I see the professors in Dongguk University, they say, in this world, amongst the parameter, the first parameter is dana, offering. And then when we ask, what about you? They have no answer to give. They only do this. So the grandmother says, one of my son is a doctor, the other one is this and that, and then you feel that the person is starving to death. So sometimes I joke with the head of our center. Those people who claim that you have to take care of them because they normally say that, but most of the time they die of their starvation. The real good son. The parents are not able to feel that their son is a really good son. But just like a tongue in the mouth, you don't know how grateful you should be to the tongue inside your mouth. If there's a trouble with the tongue inside your mouth, to say while you're biting, if the tongue comes out and refuses to work, then it could create so much pain. And also, when you are biting, if the tongue refuses to move but stays stiff, then you don't know if the food is going to your stomach or through you don't know where the food will be going to. So because your tongue listens to you so well, you don't know how to be grateful. The real good person or the real good son or child is someone that you don't know how grateful you should feel as. The moment you open your eyes, they're with you. Well, it's like a legend, but once an emperor, the new minister came to meet the emperor, and when he saw the palace, it was built with some straws, and so the minister went there to meet the emperor, but the emperor was not there. And when he was trying to look for the emperor, he was not able to see the palace. It was a very poorly built house. And so when he asked the person who was farming, "Oh, where's the emperor?" And then the emperor said, because you said that, I realized that I am an emperor. Well, I am the emperor." And when minister answered that, the emperor is farming, the emperor said, well, all our citizens are farming. How can I not do that? Everyone lives their life so comfortably that they don't even understand. Even children, when they have no problem, they don't come to you. Then you have to know that they're living a very good life. If you don't hear anything from them, that means they're living a very good life. Whether they have hurt themselves or whether they have no kimchi, then they would call you. And if they live a good life, then don't try to contact them and leave them as they are. So a king, everyone should forget about everyone should forget about the emperor, and also so that they don't even understand or they don't even remember that they go through difficulty. They don't even remember the emperor because all of them don't have go through difficulty. And also in America, in some places where the life is really good, they don't even remember the name of the president. You have to think very hard to remember who is the president. The saying here, which is about the boldness, in fact, it is a very difficult saying. It is so difficult that I am telling you again and again. I am not underestimating you, but it is difficult for me too. So I am trying to twist the words to many different ways. You know the fish pollock? It has a very strong thorn. So sometimes you eat one side and then you turn it around and eat the other side, and you turn it to many different places. And sometimes if you don't eat well and if you have thorn in your throat, then it will make you suffer a lot. And also there's other type of fish which is similar. There are many fish with strong thorns. In here, all the 5 skandhas and 12 ayatanas and also 18 duties, they don't have a form. Although the saying is done in a simple way, like here, the things that we see and the things that we hear, it's not that it comes to us and we acknowledge, but depending on the sound, the wavelength, or depending on the reflection, we understand them. So what is shown itself. So the pine tree which is outside, it is not itself, but by looking at the pine tree, what the kind of senses that we get, that's the truth. So what we see right now, it is the reflection of what we have seen and what we have intake. So what we feel and what we intake is the mind only. So in Avatamskara Sutra, it is written, because it is all from your heart, depending on what prism you let it through, or depending on what color you see it, even if you're looking at the same thing, you see different reflections. When a maple tree shedding its leaves, people with no money, they will hope that it is money. If all the yellow color is gold, then we'll buy some apartments or buy in that. And some people who has problem with their knees, they would feel that if you boil it, it's good for your blood circulation, and it also has some vital elements that's good for your body. And just like Yang Young-suk, those people who measure in furniture, they feel that by cutting that tree, they can build about 18 closets. And also cleaners, they will feel that it's shedding too much garbage. Because of the leaves that's falling, no matter how much they clean, it's very difficult to clean. And also sometimes if it gets wet, it's very difficult to clean too. And if you just if you wait until it gets dry, then you also face difficulties because they complain. And some people who has a very sensitive nose, they complain because of the smell of the ginkgo tree. Well, even just by looking at the ginkgo tree, there are so many thousands and different ideas. So it is not the problem of the objects, but looking at them, what kind of mind do you raise, or what kind of imagery do you raise? That's most important. So to say, while looking at money, if we feel that I raise an income, then because of that money, the person could die once. But some people who think that money is something that even dogs would not take away, and if you have no attachments to money, then you will not suffer from money, or you will not suffer because of money. So because of that, not only at the object, but if you are trying to live your life and all the acknowledgments that you do through your sensuous organs, finally, eventually, looking at the objects, they're all a reflection of your mind. In our last class, I have spoken about this too. So never don't feel that your husband is ugly or cannot earn well or is sure. It's never the case. But instead, if the wife is going through a difficult time because of money, it makes the husband someone. Someone who is not able to earn money. If the wife is looking at TV all the time and feels Chang Dong-gun is very handsome, then your husband becomes very ugly. Whereas someone like Chang Dong-gun, but he should earn a lot of money and contribute back to the society, because he has earned money from making other people look ugly. Isn't that so? Someone who is ugly like us, we can never do that kind of work. What's your name? Well, an ugly Myung-suk, she doesn't harm others. Where the virtue, her virtue is that she makes other people all look good, and so she has great virtue. But if the other person is handsome, and if all the people who are standing in front of them look ugly, then that's a bad thing. If you're ugly, then wherever you go, you camouflage well with the background, and that's like also the mind of the bodhisattva if you don't have complex about it. So the virtue of being ugly is also quite big if you don't have the complex about it. But being handsome, well, that is in fact you're losing your virtues if you're handsome. Well, if a good-looking person, even if they don't try to put on makeups or do something, they still look handsome. But nowadays, if you're handsome, you try to look more handsome. That's the problem. Chang Dong-gun, if you see this, well, you're making all people living in whole of the Korea ugly, so you have to contribute back to society a lot.
뭔 쓸데없는 소리 했다.
Oh, well, it was a useless saying.
물리적인 행색 같은 이 모든 외적인
Even the physical form, such as all these external objects, it occurs when you divide it together, when you divide it from the conscious mind. But it is not actually so. If there's something that is dividing from your mind that is realized,
재미난 얘기들이 뭐냐면
then the form and then the phenomenon and the mind that happens or mind that takes into consideration, they are not related at all, and we have to acknowledge that they are not related at all. And if there is something that
따로 있는 존재라면
if the object arises from our conscious mind, then it also violates our words, and so this is something very logical, and also it makes sense. If we say our heart and our palm is separated, no matter how much we try to put them together, they will stay apart, and even our words.
그 연관을 보고
And also,
그래서 내가 작동되는 것은 내 마음이고
and also the object that we see and the reaction that we provide in accordance to it, if they're not related, then they should not have any connections.
놓고 얘기할 수가 없다.
But the reaction from the object that we see, it is actually from our heart, and so we cannot separate it from ourselves.
그러니까 이제
Isn't that so? So even the things that we see,
전부 다 지 눈의 한계이지.
everything is as per our likes. But before we become Buddha, it is not easy to see how things are. Everything we see, we will see according to our likes. Everything upon our karma, we'll be able to see.
지 까르마
We'll see everything as per our karma. Just like looking at ginkgo tree.
사람이
If there are 100 different people, then the perception when they see the ginkgo tree, 100 people would have different opinions.
다 다르단 말이야. 차이가 다 있다.
They will all have differences. Then it is not because of the ginkgo tree, but that's because everyone's karma is different.
근데 그 마음 일으킨 그게 내 지금 삶을
And the mind that we have auras, that tracks our life, and that is the seed that is rooted in the deepest part of our mind.
그 이제 충청도 사람이 충청북도
And so
서시장
a person who is living in Chungcheongnam-do came to Yasu to the market, and she couldn't buy anything because when she saw a fish, she was very scared.
온 것이 밀
All that she saw was
저 다슬기하고 뺏기 못 보고
some
바야 강고등어 그다음에
some mackerel, and also
먹거나 이러던 사람들이 와가지고 여수로 시집을 왔어. 여수 시집을
and also some like mudfish, and
들어가자마자 비린내가 나가지고 진동을 하지. 여수 사람들은 가면서
also some like catfish.
그런 게 나.
And everywhere she went, she could smell the fish smell. But for Yosu people, when we smell something fishy, we say, "Oh, there's something very fresh," and so Chungcheong people, they could not come. They could not go to the marketplace in Yosu.
주니까 못 가지.
And also, when she was given some fresh food, some fresh fish, she couldn't take it because she doesn't even know how to clean them.
그 티베트 내충생을 오시.
When Tibetan Nechung Guten came, well, Yosu people don't think of a fish as meat, to say.
고기 넣지 말고
So when we ask them not to put not to put any fish or not to put any meat, and she put prawn, and when we said why did you put meat, she put she was like oh, it's prawn or meat, and then Guten said, oh, there is an insect. Guten has never seen prawns. It's like an insect, right?
또 사람 벌레처럼 생긴 거야. 그러니까 내 선생님 뭐라 그러냐면 국에 벌레가 잘못해서
And so Nechun Guten thought by mistake there were some insects in the soup, because in Himalayas you cannot see prawns. So first time when you went there, the lover, because we ate lover, they thought we are eating some black paper.
검정종이를 왜 먹고
And they asked, why are you eating black paper?
그 사람들은 우리는 종이에다 밥
They thought we wrapped rice in the paper.
이게 종이가 아니고
And so we had to explain that this is seaweed and it is not a paper. And they said this lover is so good quality that they could even write on it.
내가 그 생각을 탁 그때 떠올려 뒤집어서 뭐라 하냐면 야 이게 여수에 말이야 긴 페인팅 하는 사람이 있어.
And so I thought maybe as an artist, if we have a lover painter, it would be amazing.
그림 제목 김을 잘 발라가지고
Use the kim well, and if we could draw on it, it could be very good.
근데 블랙페퍼라는 얘기를 듣고서 내가 얼른 그 생각.
That's what I thought after I heard the word black paper. So the consciousness, when you see an object, you see everything through your prism, and that's why you see everything as per your likes and as per your consciousness. And by looking at that, you also go through self-development.
다시 그 업이 정장
And also the karma becomes bigger and bigger too.
커지고 한 거란 말이야. 내가 그 얘기하잖아. 우리는 열쇠를
We say that when we see keys,
딱 그냥 열쇠가 잠기지도 않았는데도 열쇠만 보면 아이고 안 들어가야 돼.
even when the key is not locked, the moment we see a lock,
열쇠 터
we feel that it's not a place that we should enter. But if it is a thief, then the moment they see a key, a lock, they think it's a place that they should open and go in. Sometimes when I see them, it amazes me. How can a karma develop so much? All around the world, no matter which lock ever we bring, they can open it. It's not even the safe house, but any place they can open. In just 3 minutes, they can even open a lock, any lock, even faster than the owner. But the owner, sometimes we cannot open it because we are distracted, but they open it faster than an owner.
그 내가 하도 기가 차서 요즘에 현대식으로
And so I asked them,
하도 많이
then how do you open the ones with the number lock? And they say it's even easier. If you just hit it with a hammer, then it opens because of the error.
예? 공개하면 안 돼?
You should not reveal it.
그러니까 뭐 디지털
So even if we call it digital,
아무 쓸데가
it doesn't have any use.
없으면 우리는 생각할 때는
But when we think,
생각할 때는 이게 보다
we
들어오는 것만
we only think about pressing the button and entering.
개인수가
But it has a lot of possibilities.
잘못하면 잘하고 백을 또
If you really have a good luck, then they will enter through the wall. So the best method is that you should not have anything in the room. Then they would not come inside.
그 집안에
Isn't that so? If you only have ants in the house, if you have a lot of ants in the house, it either means you haven't cleaned the house or there are many things on the floor. There are many eatables in the floor.
이것은 사물이 인식하는 마음이 것이라는 말과
It also violates the saying that it occurred from the mind
정의할 수
that the object occurred from the mind that takes in the object of consciousness, it is not something that you can put in the meaning apart from what's in your heart. If an object has a physical form, and if they really exist externally, then even when we analyze them in terms of particular, they should be able to exist. If not, then they don't exist in reality externally. So if we say all pine trees exist, and if we put all the pine tree into powder, and if we burn them, then there will be nothing left. But if pine tree is something that lasts forever without any change, then we would accept that pine tree could have its eternal form. But even when you see them, they don't last forever, and they don't really exist in reality. Whichever object it is, if you analyze them to the very minute detail, then everything goes back to voidness. They don't last. So we say, in Adam in Diamond Sutra, the non-abiding charity, what is the essence of it? The voidness is the essence of it. Even the person who is contributing, and even the person who is receiving, and even the object that is given, all three of them doesn't have any form. So, because I'm also a being that doesn't have a form, it doesn't successfully create the formula that I gave it. And also the person who received it doesn't have a form, so it doesn't really make the formula that they have received. And also the object that is given is not eternal, so it changes, and so it doesn't even have a form. So it also does not make up the formula that it is given. So all three of them are clean, and all three of them are void. It has been proven. Isn't that so? If we say, I have given, I am not there, but what have I given? Have given to the person, but essentially the person is just someone who has appeared in terms of relation. The person doesn't have eternity. Then to whom you have given. And also if we argue in terms of time frame, we have given something to this person, but there's no time which we so call as now. It just changes. We have given instantly, and for an instant it is a relation. But even the time that we're given is not fixed, it doesn't stay. It also flows. Time also flows. So when we give, or saying when we donate, in the sense of voidness, when you study in detail, and if we don't have the mindset that we have given it arises, then that's also because I myself is void from the beginning. So I gave it, and I'm great. The moment you start having this kind of thought, that person starts having ego, and so if you feel that I gave it to the person is not grateful, I gave it to the person, I am great, you start thinking about them, isn't it? When I spoke about it until this moment, they started saying that, well, it makes clear, then if I don't give it, it's fine. So nowadays, such kind of truth, you have no idea how that delights me. I feel delighted about it. So
주는 것이나 받는 것이나
even receiving and giving, or
무슨 물건 중간에
uh,
같은 것이라도
even giving it, it's same.
내가 헛것이를 한다 그러면
Even if I am donating the Dharma or teaching, the essence of Dharma is void and I don't exist. And even Dharma or teaching of Dharma is also a method. So I'm only teaching them the way to enter to Nirvana. It's not that Dharma exists on its own as a separate entity. That's why to someone who came drunk, to them, not to drink, tell him not to drink is Dharma.
내가 절대적이다라고 생각을 해서 그걸 믿고 사는
And
사람은
also a person who believes
사람이 와도 술 먹지 마.
and also a person who believes that not drinking is your dharma, and they would say even to the person who doesn't drink not to drink, but that is not so. You should say you should not drink to a person who drinks, but not to the person who doesn't drink. So someone who doesn't have any disease, if you tell them that antibiotics is a very good medicine, eat every day, then that person will die. So if you have wrong idea about religion, and if you have your own ego, and if you say you should believe in them, if you don't believe in them, you'll go to hell. In that way, you have created everyone. You have made everyone stupid.
그러더라고. 김일성
Where someone said, well, when you talk about problems in the textbook, they wrote about Kim Il Sung's idea. Who double checked them? It's all in the Lee Myung-bak regime, and you have to put all these communist people into jail.
국정교과서나 검정교과서, 검정교과서 자체가 검정이 뭡니까?
They have double checked and they have censored the textbook. The government has censored them and have passed them. Although it's written by many people, the saying has been censored by the government.
다양화된 생각 자체도 인정을 못하겠다. 전부 다 하나로
And also the way they say about the textbook, it means they don't even accept the diversity of information or knowledge. They just take into one concept. But how can a history be taken in one concept? That's a dictatorship because everyone has different perceptions. Not even kings in the Joseon dynasty could do that. Even the kings at the time, the people who evaluate them, they put into a secret ballot, and they would also not be able to open it. All the contents were closed, and the kings were not able to see a lot to see. Why is it so? They fear that they would be amended.
얼마나 잘 고쳐놓겠어.
And if they amended, you can already imagine the content. Well, my father, when he was born, he already had some golden spoon in his mouth. When he was 2, he kicked the football, and the ball went into its right place. Even now, Kim Il Sung, when he was young, he could even fold the distance.
땅을 주름 잡아서
They said Kim Il Sung can just make wrinkles on the street and walk around. I can do that too. If I jump from one stone to another, it already shortens the distance.
김일성이가 이제 그런 주체 사상을 한 거야. 누가 남한 사람 지금 다양한
Where such kind of ideology, people in the North Korea,
그런
with so many different diverse ideas, all the things that Kim Il Sung does, even if they bring out that to South Korea, I don't think there will be anyone who believes it. Maybe I would believe it. Someone who is as foolish as me, we could believe it, but I don't think there will be anyone who trusts them. That's a great lie.
예? 좌파가 아니라 좌파자 할애비도 그거 안 좌파자 할애비다. 그건 좌파가 한국 좌파는 좌파 아니야. 그건 내가 볼 때는 한국
Even the leftists, I don't think the people that they call themselves as leftists are really leftists here.
중도 정도밖에 안 돼. 가장 좌파.
And even they would not believe it.
그리고 이북의 빨갱이들한테
Also, they're not the leftists who are with the communist people in in the north, but they just make them look like communists or people from North Korea when they want to put their own ideas.
그럼 한국식으로 얘기하면
If you talk about it in the Korean way, then everyone who is in Germany, France, and also France, they are also communist. Why is it so? Because if you look at it from their ideology, it looks like they are communists. And then you can also say the Republicans in America, they are also socialists. Well, they also believe the republic. They also believe that sharing is first priority. But in the political way, while fighting, they say so many propagandas which are also wrong, but we should not be fooled by them.
여러분이 볼 때 내가
In your opinion, do you think I'm leftist or rightist?
나는 새누리당이 얘기하는 것 같으면 새빨간 빨갱이.
As per the Senuri Party's idea, I'm a socialist. I'm a leftist because I want to share and live.
새누리당은 철저하게 부자들한테 밀어줘가지고.
And Senuri Party has given everything to the rich people, and they want us to live with what's given by them. But I oppose that idea 100%. In this world, I have never seen a country that succeeded or that prospered. They went through prosperity without sharing. Even the kingdom, without sharing, they never succeeded. Like a king like Sejong, during his time, the country was so strong that even foreigners, they never thought of invading our country. And during the Sejong's time, we also made Jeju-do like our country. And even Amlok River and Jumat River, we expanded our nation. At the time, Yeojin people, they always invaded our country, and so our border was not very clear. But during Sejong's dynasty, we even made our border a little clear. At the time, Sejong said, because it's your country. He did not say only in terms of orally, but he also said because we all share them. Because we said we share them. And also, since people also do not suffer from hunger, they thought of saving our country. But why did people all run away during Imjin War? Because no one was sharing anything. But why did the citizens they fight and people and the common citizens, why did they fight? Because they have nowhere to go. Because they die even when they're here or even when they run away. Such pathetic situation was created by people who are in power. So, how are rich people in great power, and regardless of left party or right party, in people in the power, they did not go to army too, military. They say they could not see well because they were fat, because they were short, because they're not healthy, or because they lose their tooth. Well, it's people living, and they have certain like percentage, and also because they also were rich, then they should have more people, more number of people going to military. But if the percentage reduces, then it means they also have a problem. So once in a while, people without power, people without money, people without parents, only those went to military, and they also question why are we going through this suffering. They enabled that such things were happening again and again. Then the nation collapses. I said this again and again. During Silla dynasty, you know about Hwarangs, right? And they are the sons of the ministers, and they were willing to die. who are the people in Hwarang? They are all sons of rich family. They were willing to go to war and die. And the common citizens, when they're willing to go and die, the common citizens were willing to follow. But nowadays, they don't. Nowadays, people in the high power, the sons, they don't even enter into our country because they don't want to go to military, and they do drugs. And how is it going to happen? During Shilla, people in Gyeongsang area, they were not even rich. They only produce a lot of ballet. But in the southern part, we have a lot of rice, and also we are very rich. And this strong country, even when Korea came to invade our country, we did not have any effect. Then do you think we're going to lose easily to Shilla? The first reason why Shilla won is because people in the power, even people in the people of minister status, they came to the frontier of war and they fought. And so the common people, they were willing also to fight with them. About Baekje Uja King, he was standing in the back and he was drinking and he was playing around. And only few admirals, they went in the front line to fight. And so the situation itself is different. Without sharing, and also the people would only think that they want to come forward and save the country. They would only think so if there is an ancestor worth saving, there's also property worth saving, family worth saving. If only they live happily, and also if they are the only rich people, and if they are starving and suffering from hunger all the time, then who tried to save the country? It is also there in Buddha's saying that when they try to invade other country, they call and had a conversation with Arahant. They asked, what should I do? And do you think Buddha would ask them to go for war? Buddha spoke to them. He made the minister sit beside him and had a conversation with Arahant. Buddha asked, are they good at respecting their parents? And Arahant understood and said, yes, in the country, people are so respectful to their parents. And second, Arahant, among do rich and poor share in that country? And the answer was, rich people, when they do farming and when they have when they harvest a lot of things, they try very hard to share with poor people. And then the king and the minister, can they have a good conversation? Sometimes when I see, it seems like the ministers are the kings. They have such a good manner of conversation that the king is trying very hard to listen to other citizens. And there were 7 to 8 questions, and each time Buddha asked question, then Buddha made a commentary that it seems like the country is unified and they would never fall down. And people who listen, it seems like if they try to invade the country, then they would be taken as a very bad people because they could never win. And so they went to the king and said, it seems like after listening to Buddha, we should not try to invade the country. The rule is fair. The king and the minister, they are in harmony. They are respectful to their parents, and the country is very strong. And if we try to invade the country, how great suffering will we have? So let's not try to invade the country. A ruler should always try to share That's the very basic of politics. All the politics, whether it's socialism, whether it's socialist or even capitalist, having power
모든 백성을 상대로
means
하는 것이지.
you're taking power on behalf of everyone or other citizens. You're not having power on behalf of some particular party. So it is a very important saying. This is also proof that the object of consciousness and also the mind doesn't exist as separate entity. Therefore, to scholars who have this kind of idea, some schools of saying, they say external forces and also the nature of our mind, they don't exist as two separate entities. So if you can understand the voidness of mind and also the object, if you understand them, then nothing really exists without the object of our consciousness and our mind. So the mind that we have raised looking at the object, even the mind that you have created while looking at your husband, that is also all your mind that you have created while looking at your husband, and also it belongs to you. Other than that, your husband doesn't exist as a separate entity. Well, of course, he exists as external entity, but at some point of time, he is going to disappear in terms of relation, and he is also a voidness that exists without a sense. I'm also the same being. Even your husband, while looking at you, he takes into consideration, and even the mind that he has taken into consideration. And that's it. While Yeon's husband looks at mother, he only thinks, oh, she's ugly. That's it. For your reference, Yeon is son of Ilgang Bosal. So in reality, whether we look at it in the pretty manner or not, it is also the object that we have created out of our habit. Normal people, they understand and they estimate wrongly that the physical form exists eternally. So therefore, they think that such as forms, just like our dream, they exist in our external forces. In the ultimate meaning, the forms are nothing outside our heart. We assume that the forms are there eternally, but it is not there. If you look at it in reality, they don't really exist. Someone said, in olden poetry, the landscape stays the same, but all people have died, all people have vanished. That is also a wrong saying. How can the landscape stay forever? The old landscape is not same. It's just that it changes slowly. And we just change sooner. But even the landscape changes very soon. Spring, summer, autumn, winter, a tree grows, dies, there's a new sprout, dies. Also, there's a landslide. Sometimes there is also a development. In order to write the poetry, you have to say that it's correct to say the landscape changed and also human beings have died. where the beginning is a little wrong.
가 틀렸단 말이야. 뭐 태평여들은 태평 세월에 살기 좋은 세상이라는 것은 꿈같이 지나간 세월이구나.
In this world, those good times are just have passed just like in the dreams. Well, in other words, it also means the good time for them, it has passed away. That is also their saying. That is also the saying of someone who is very narrow-minded. Suddenly, it reminds me of that poetry. The landscape is the same, and everyone is dying. But landscape has also disappeared, and human being has also disappeared. That's right one. So it is only the mind that we observe. So while looking at the object and the mind that arises from it, that is me and that is my heart. So while looking at the object, if you keep having a mind that is causing you suffering, that's because you feel so. It is saying for even the Confucius, they talk about voidness, but although they have not spoken perfectly, but they also talk about them. But even the Yogacara thought they also make criticism for the ultimate voidness. But if we study it from its origin, in somewhere in the center, the Nagarjuna's voidness, study of voidness, even in the terms of scientific way, it seems to be correct. Although even though idealism or spiritualism, there's also some part that we cannot accept, but the philosophy of voidness in the logical way, or even in terms of study, the only person who has achieved it is Nagarjuna. Of course, Buddha has spoken about voidness before, but the person who has analyzed them and also put it together in terms of text is Nagarjuna. Therefore, ultimate truth or voidness doesn't mean it is apart from the object of our consciousness, and also the person who intakes them or is in consciousness, they are not separate. Even the object is not different, and even my heart there is not different, and because of that, and it is also something that's being produced from 5 skandhas and 12 ayatas and 18 dhatus. It's just a phenomenon. Even the mind is just a phenomenon that has occurred. If you analyze physical things, then the previous form disappears. So if you study them in detail, then nothing really remains. And so by analyzing them again and again in minute details, then you can see that nothing remains. Essentially, you cannot find anything that lasts forever. This is also something that they talk in physics. This is idea of Yogacara thought. It is also not very different. It is also not very different from idea of the yoga chakra, and also the school of mid-thoughts. But even this idea is not all accepted from the mid schools last thought of school. So therefore, in next paragraph, they also highlight the idea of the distinct idea of the mid philosophy. So this saying,
들어야 돼요.
we have to understand them properly.
색 등의 형상을 파악하는 갖가지 심성이 생겨나서 인식하는 것을 진지해서 무엇이라고 할 만한 것이 있겠습니까?
What could be there that we can say is true? Just like the forms are also lie, and just like forms are lie, even the mind doesn't. Mind is also similar to it, and therefore the form is not original in its count or in its form. The mind is also not the same. So therefore, mind is also like an illusion.
현상이지 자성을 갖고 있지 못하는
So our mind is also an illusion, and also it does not have its own distinct property.
불변의 자성을 갖고 있지 못하다.
It does not have a property that lasts forever.
에 의해서 형성이
It is also formed from the 5 skandhas and 12 ayatanas and 18 dhatus.
그 현상이
It is also a phenomenon.
그것이 변치 않는 본질적으로 변치 않는 어떤 자성을 갖고 있지 못하다 말.
It doesn't have a form that doesn't change. And that is the voidness of our mind.
아주 뭐 이런 데서는
Well, in areas like this, just like a knife, he has spoken about it.
그냥 뒤에 어정쩡히 꼬리를 남겼던
There is no residues left for explanation here.
것이 다
Everything is spoken in very detail,
공성이거니와
and so even the object is void.
그 대상을 보고 듣고
And also while looking at the object, tasting, listening, hearing, tasting, and also touching and feeling them, and so coming to an analysis, and subconsciously there's something remaining, and the fact that there is unconscious, subconscious state. But even those things, essentially,
자성을 갖고서 변치 않는 어떤
there is nothing that has its own property and remains forever. But it's just a phenomenon. That's why all of them have created a different phenomenon. If God has created the same, then all the phenomena that is created in her should be the same. But it is not so. Everything is different.
얘기를 하고 있지만은
Although I am speaking about this, well, the listeners, while listening,
이렇게 마음대로
the mind that they have also caused is all different.
똑같은 사람이 한 사람도 없어요.
There's not even a single people or a single person that would think the same.
다른 것을 인식하고 그러면서 이제
So everyone intakes different ideas and they all become better, but everyone does not intake the same and improve the same.
똑같지 않아요.
Although the big flow is same, but they are all different.
불교의 여러 학파들 사이에서
Even amongst many different schools in Buddhism, their explanation or interpretation for voidness is a little different. Yoga Chakra thought explanation, it's difficult to see that they have given all detailed philosophy of voidness. Of course, in many of
더 낮은 수준의
texts written by Yoga Chakra thought,
학견을 이해할 수 있는 바탕을
they also possess their own logic. In this way, rather than seeing it in a Buddhist perception, it's better to see from the overall perception. Basically, the schools at the lower level, whether it's direct or indirect, they try to understand it or try to apply a little detailed version of our higher academic level. Above line is explained in a different and interesting manner from the mid school of thoughts, but also deals with the selfless of phenomenon. According to the mid school, then all phenomena are caused from the mind, and it has just been named. Not only external objects, but also the phenomena that occurs in many different dimensions. They don't really exist. And so in the mid school, just like this, whether it is external or internal, ultimately they don't accept the existence of them.
그래서 일어난 하나의 현상이지.
what if any phenomena happens in the mind and we can acknowledge them, which is truth, but the person does not have its own personality or property. And also we can see that there are contradictions which we see, and because of those contradictions we cannot accept the ultimate reality of them. And therefore in all phenomena there is no its own essential personality or its own characteristics. So the mind which we see is not real. Just like how mind is a soul, even the phenomenon is just like an illusion. We have to understand that they are also an illusion. Likewise, wisely analyzing the property of our mind, and then we cannot find the property of the mind even externally and also internally. And we cannot find it from the past, and also we cannot find it from the future. So if we understand that the essence of them is void, then things that happen in the past and also things that will happen in the future, they will not have its own property, and they would arise and they would just disappear. And so in the Diamond Sutra it's also written there's no way to find the mind of past, present, and future. And so Venerable Dharma and also Hega, they had the Dharma debate.
제가 몹시 마음이 불안합니다. 그렇게 얘기하니까 그 마음을 갖고 와봐라. 내가 그 편안하게 해주마.
During the debate, when they said my mind is very unstable, and so
한참 찾아보니까
And so Venerable Hega tried to look for the mind, whether it's there or here. And when he found it, he answered that I cannot find it. And then Dharma said, what are you doing with something that you cannot even find, which you cannot even see? It is something that you have aroused. It's just like you're fighting with your own shadow. You're fighting with the shadow that you have developed on your own. Where the saying is so great. Likewise, you cannot even identify your mind, and you cannot even trust your mind. Sometimes people say trust your mind, but you don't even know where your heart is, and how can you trust it? Isn't it so? We ourselves cannot even trust our mind easily. Why? Well, if it has some form, then we can hold on to it, but it doesn't have a form. Sometimes this kind of mind happens, and the other time when anything happens. So the mind that we feel, or the feeling that we feel before we go to bathroom or after we have visited bathroom, is very different. So the way we arise our mind is all different. So it is also wrong to say the mind or the thought that we had 10 years ago hasn't changed. That's also wrong. Even during the wedding, people ask you, are you going to live until your hair turns gray? People say that because a lot of things change. If it doesn't change, then there's no need even to mention about it. Well, normally our mind, when you make a decision, and if it doesn't change, then during the wedding, they would not even say live forever, live until nothing changes. Well, mind happens like that. That's why they decide that. It also goes through a lot of change, and it changes so often. It changes like food that's stored without fridge, outside fridge. Why is it so? Each time you see an object, it changes. It changes often. But the bacteria that infects it, that is like the greediness. Well, if you have a lot of greediness, then when you see something, it changes this way. When you see something, it changes away. That's also because you have greediness. When we say you're citing Japan, you need money, so you're citing Japan. But after independence, you also try to be on the side of the Korean government because you have to survive. So I thought
그죠? 장사하는 분이
So I thought Mr. Kim, he should not also say my father. I think he should say my father was a merchant. Then maybe it was better. But like a person like Yoon Bong-gil, he was not a merchant. Someone like him, Lee Bong-chang or Yoon Bong-gil, they were very straight, and they were also great scholars, and they were also great military people. Not all people are like him, or not all people are like them.
그러니까 조금 이제 소인배들은
So little petty people, depending on their greediness, their mind changes often. If they think it's going to benefit them, they change it that way. If they think it's going to be beneficial that way, then they try to side them. If you think it's going to give you benefits, if you side America, then you side America. If you think it will bring you more money, if you side Japan, then you side Japan. The thing that I want to tell Korea is that don't think that economy is everything. Sometimes while living, you also should know that sometimes it's more important to say no. Morally, we cannot accept that. We should have our own baseline. But for us, we are only concerned about money and export.
여수에 내가 자꾸 이제
And also in Yeosu,
경도에 리조트가 들어온다 그러는데
I heard that there will be a result in Gyeongdo Island,
카지노
and they also tried to build casino there.
카지노 노름방 아니고 그죠?
Casino is a gambling place, right?
부자 된 날은
And a place that has become rich with gambling. I haven't seen a country that became rich with gambling. And I said no to casino. And they say it is not us, but it's only for the foreigners.
돈 사기쳐가지고
So you're going to cheat foreigners, you're going to survive on the money that you have earned cheating people. When I went to Macau, I almost puked.
그 우리가 여수에서 그 우리 지금 여러분의 자녀들
Your children in Yeosu, to your descendants, do you want to give a gambling place? It's almost like
그 아파트를 갖다가 그 노름하는 장소 만들어서
It's almost like changing our place to a gambling place, changing our apartment to gambling place, and you give to your descendants. And if you enable your children to see fights and also smoking, drinking, gambling, you should also have some concern about morality.
그러니까 그런 것을 갖다 우리가 좀 생각 안
And
하고 그냥
And if you don't think about them, but if you only pursue after money, and if you believe that we can do everything just to earn money, then that's the biggest way to humiliate Yeosu, and also it is the greatest way to put dirt on our descendants. So to our descendants, while building our Yeosu and our descendants, our second generations,
내가 지금 산다고 생각해서 뭐 후세들이 사는 것으로 생각해.
we should not think that it is our place, but it is the place for our descendants. So we should try to reduce even drinking place, or there should be no drugs and there should be no gambling place. Isn't that so? Well, isn't that truth?
아 그거 뭐 돈 벌어진다네.
But if we believe that
남을 불행하게
it's not going to cost us money,
노름하려고 그래도 그 노름
well, even in Buddha's saying, it's written that you should not try to survive on other people's suffering. Even if you are going to win money through gambling, you should not do that. If you should not believe that, please lose everything and I'm going to be benefited from it.
이 마음이라는 것이 우리가 신뢰할
So something like a mind is not something that we can believe in, and also
이거는 몸보다 더 빨리 변합니다.
and mind also changes way faster than our body.
특히 머리가
especially someone whose brain works very fast
중심에서 욕심 좀 적고 이런
in their own center. If they don't have less greediness, well, if they're very greedy and if they're very intelligent, they change sooner.
냉장고 없을 때 팥죽 변하듯이 그냥
They will spoil very fast, just like a food kept outside in summer.
형성을 가지지 않는 것이 본래 성품인 것은 무엇과 같은가라고 한다면
If you ask what is it,
완전히 탐구하게 되면
something that doesn't have a form, something that does not even be called, what is it? Then just like spoken in 보적경, we can figure out that mind doesn't have its form.
발견할 수가 없는 것을 찾을 발견할 수가 없는
Something that we cannot find, something that we cannot discover, something that we cannot even discover, we cannot even find them. So if there is something called mind, then we can find it.
우리가 이제 자아를 찾는
And so when we say we are finding ourselves, and also it is wrong to say we are finding ourselves, we are going to monastery to find ourselves. Where is ourself?
견성을 하는
If you find the Buddhist nature,
근성이 있는 것이면 그건 그냥 어디 그게 전부 다그 마음
if you can't find Buddha nature, that's also different. Everything is caused from the mind. The Buddha nature, it is just the mind that you want to become Buddha. So you cannot say that the sense, Buddha sense or Buddha nature came, you found it because of your deep meditation.
그래서 발견할
You
수가
can-
없는 것은
Something that you cannot find, something that you cannot discover, you cannot even find. It was not there in the past, it's not there in the present, it will not be there in the future too.
그러니까 발견할 수가 없고
So if something that you cannot discover, you cannot even find. So if you can find it, can you find it? You cannot find it. Well, not even in the past. Even if you try now, you cannot find it. So in other words,
창조주를 찾는데
you're looking for the creator.
지금도 아직까지 모르고 2000년 동안
But even for 2,000 years, we didn't know. We have not found it. And if you cannot find it even now, then you cannot find it even in future.
그렇게 분석하면 마음은
If you analyze that way, then even the beginning is even the beginning is not there. You cannot find the middle, and you cannot even find the conclusion. These are things we cannot find even in the beginning, and also somewhere in the middle, and also in the end. Why is it so? Because they don't exist. If you ask when did your mind start, we don't know.
언제 끝나는지 모르겠네.
And also, we don't know when it will end.
대상 따라 일어났다 사라졌다.
Depending on the object, it arises and also ends. It repeats again and again.
이와 같이 마음의 끝과 중간이 없는
Likewise, mind doesn't have the beginning and center. And just like that, if you realize
공이야. 마음이 무언가를
all phenomena doesn't have its boundary and also center, so it is void. So if we realize that mind doesn't have its property, we realize that it is void. When we say we have realized something, we can find out that mind doesn't have anything. So we realize that it's empty inside.
그것을 알았다고 해도
And even if we come to know that,
형상인 형색 등의 본래 성품 역시
even the forms of mind is not something that we can see ultimately. So even if we come to know our voidness,
그렇게 느꼈을 뿐이지 뭐 보이는
it's just that we feel so, but it is not something that we see. It is wrong to say we have seen the voidness.
그렇게 지혜로도
So even with the wisdom or prajna, if we cannot see its form, then we cannot say whether the form is void or if there is an acne, if there's no acne, if it's eternal, if it arises, if it disappears, if it exists or does not exist. So if the agony or pain or afflictions, if they exist from beginning, we cannot know. But if agony was not there from the beginning, because it arose just like a dream, then even getting rid of it doesn't make sense. Then why are we trying to get rid of it? If we don't wake up from our dream, then we will stay in the dream forever. So it's just that we are trying to wake ourselves from dream, but we are not getting rid of the afflictions. But when we say we are getting rid of them, we have to put that concept, then only we'll try. But then after we wake up, we realize that we are standing in the same stand. But in reality, because of my full thoughts, behaviors, and speech, we also realize if I don't do any of them, it doesn't cause any pain. And just like when you wake up from the dream, all the sufferings that were in the dream disappears and we can live on without life. And so such people, they don't have greediness because greediness was not there from the beginning. Likewise, just like we cannot make difference or form of form, also just like the feelings or senses or reactions or mind does not exist, then how can it distinguish others too?